Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to fight on until Israel crushes Hamas and rescues the more than 100 hostages still being held. In the meantime, the Israeli forces are moving deeper into the southern Gaza Strip, and we're going to talk more about that now with our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Rob, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, well, the 24 soldiers were killed in the southern part of the Gaza Strip in Khan Younis, whereas we just heard from Catherine there, they were about to blow up a building. And they were fired on by Hamas operatives in the area and blew up the building which they were in. You know, it's war, these things do happen, but nevertheless shocking for Israeli society, shocking for the Israeli Defense Forces fighting in Gaza at the moment. But when they went in there, they will have understood that these are things that can happen in situations like that. Overall, it has to be said that the casualties suffered by the Israeli forces in Gaza over the course of the operation have been relatively slight. You know, you're talking about 217 soldiers killed in the course of however many weeks it is now since the end of October. If you compare that with other conflicts that are going on around the world, in Ukraine, for instance, where several hundred Russian soldiers are being killed every single day in the conflict in Ukraine, it gives you an idea of, I suppose, how effective the Israeli armed forces are operating and how much attention the command of the Israeli armed forces puts on ensuring the safety and professionalism of the soldiers there. They say that they now have the Hamas forces in Khan Younis surrounded. Whether that's true or not, there's absolutely no way of knowing because there are no independent journalists to verify that sort of information. But that's what they now claim. And they're talking, about doing eventually what they've done in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, reducing the number of soldiers there, reduced by half in large parts of the Gaza Strip now. Presumably they'll want to do the same in the southern part of the Gaza Strip as well. But they're not there yet. It appears that they're in the most intensive phase, with aerial bombardment as well as ground offensive. 195 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours.
Rob, this comes as we are hearing from one U.S. news site, Axios, that there is some kind of new negotiation that's happening between Israel and Hamas. What more can you tell us about that?
Whether it's happening with Hamas or not, we're not absolutely clear, but certainly the Israelis have put proposals through their mediators, the Qataris and the Egyptians, which presumably are now in the hands of Hamas. Hamas itself made proposals of its own a day or so ago, which they suggested that they would release, or proposed that they would release hostages in return for a ceasefire, for the withdrawal entirely of the Israeli Defense Forces from Gaza, and for recognition of Hamas's authority in the Gaza Strip. That was rejected out of hand by Benjamin Netanyahu, who said it's not a proposal at all. And he said he was coming up with a counter-proposal that the Israelis have made. Now that, presumably, is what the Egyptians and the Qataris are speaking of at the moment. And that involves a 2-month pause. And during that time, there would be phased release of hostages, starting with women, men over 60, people who are critically ill, then going on to female soldiers, civilian men, and ultimately male soldiers. It isn't specified how many Palestinian prisoners would be released in return for that. So it's not absolutely clear, how the Palestinians are likely to respond. But it is at last a proposal being made by the Israelis. It doesn't talk, for instance, either about whether Palestinians in the Gaza Strip would be allowed in that 2 months to return to their houses in the north of the Gaza Strip, for instance. An awful lot of things that need to be filled in, and we still have no idea what sort of response is coming from the Palestinian Hamas organization.